Dahan say, if the long shadows of sunset stretching beside you begin to shift and flicker like tongues of hungry fire, do not run. That will only feed your fear and whet the Shadow's appetite. Shadows is a low complexity spirit, but I'm going to put an asterisk next to that one. At first glance, it's easy to call Shadows a fear-focused spirit, but it's got a lot more to offer. Its innate and its cards generate fear, but they also allow for a lot of control over explorers, towns, and Dahan, which can be used for denial, defense, and counterattack. It also has a card that allows you to replace a city with a town or a town with explorer, which is a really powerful effect. Its special rule also allows you to get around a lot of range by allowing you to target any land with Dahan, as long as you meet the other targeting restrictions. You're going to start with 3 presence on your board. 2 in the highest numbered jungle, and 1 in land number 5, whatever that is. This gives you a good zone of influence right from the start, though remember, your special rule allows for tons of coverage with enough energy. You got 3 growth options. You can reclaim and get a power card. You can get a power card and add presence up to range 1, or you can add presence up to range 3 and get 3 energy. Now I'm going to tell you a true thing. Shadows has a correct opening growth move. If you pick the 3rd growth option on your first turn, which gains 3 energy and places a presence up to range 3, you can unlock your 2nd card play and have enough energy to play 2 of your cards. You're probably going to want to save Concealing Shadows for a Ravage, since it protects the Dahan, but the other 3 all have immediate applications. If you do it, you're going to immediately see use from your innate and have enough energy to play your other 2 cards the next turn and get it again. You're going to immediately start generating fear, preventing builds, and feeling useful instead of feeling like you're constantly lagging behind. As with all advice, this is yours to take or leave. Now, I've mentioned the special rule several times. It's the Shadows of the Dahan. Whenever you use a power, you can pay 1 energy to target a land with Dahan regardless of the power's range. Shadows is really hard to put in a box, as you might expect something called Shadows. Because of your ability to target from Dahan, you can get almost anywhere on the board, and this allows you to clean up messes during slow that other spirits can't reach. You'll want to always keep a few energy in reserve, but with a little planning, your reach will stretch to all corners of the land. Your creepy, creepy reach. I'm going to talk about Crops Withering and Fading, which is a slow power that costs 1 and requires a range of 0. Again, remember that special rule. First off, it gives you 2 fear, and then you can replace a town with an explorer or replace a city with a town. I'm really fond of this because it shows off a rare effect, reducing invader pieces, and it plays to Shadow's strengths both as a creepy weirdo and as a killer of the unwary. It takes a lot of effort for a spirit to destroy a city outright in the early years, but for Shadows flicker like flame, it takes far less to make one dry up as they see their harvest dead in the field. Eventually, you can just whittle them down to a manageable size, and then they'll just disappear and stop being a problem. While the fear generation and build prevention with your innate provides a steady benefit, you're going to be at your best in a reactionary role. You've got excellent energy generation, you've got multiple card plays, and you've got multiple growth options that give you more power cards. So you can make a push towards major powers sooner than most spirits, or you can just amass a lot of minor tools. It's very self-reliant. While it benefits from cooperation and aid, it's pretty fine by itself. Given your reliance on Moon and Fire, you're going to be looking for a lot of cards in the fear and damage dealing areas. And since you don't generate any elements on your tracks, you're going to have to get everything from your cards, so be really careful in choosing. The earlier you can start reliably hitting the 2nd tier of your innate, the better, since that's when it starts paying off in fear as well as build prevention. If you want to make Shadows a bit more complex, one of the new aspect cards has you covered. The Madness aspect replaces your Shadow of the Dahan special rule with 2 new special rules. First off, Shadows cast a Subtle Madness. When you add presence during growth, you can also add strife in that land. And the Glimpse of the Shadowed Void. When your presence is destroyed, if the invaders are present, 1 fear per presence destroyed. While you lose the extra reach, the new rules allow you to add presence as a defensive measure, dropping into places that are about to be ravaged and preventing it with strife. This is really useful in the early and mid-game when there are a lot of single towns and cities ravaging, and it can work extremely well to eradicate lone towns and the occasional city with Dahan counterattacks. It does make it a bit more tempting to scatter your presence instead of making sacred sites, so you'll have to be careful not to make your innate power useless. Gaining fear when your presence is destroyed isn't going to crop up all that often, unless you have a way to bring it back via cards or other spirits. It may never come up. But if you're dropping presents into hotspots, there are definitely going to be times when you miscalculate and a single strife ends up not being quite enough to prevent blight and the loss of your presents. For those times, it's going to be good to get something out of the mess. And if you do have a plan to get your presents back, note that the rule triggers whenever your presence is destroyed, not whenever an invader or blight destroys your presents. I'm just saying, something to think about. Keep pulling explorers to an unknowable, but definitely horrible fate in the darkness. There is no safety. Wherever they go, you were there all along.